Captain James Harper had just returned from a long, exhausting day aboard the starship Endeavour. His role as a seasoned diplomat on the galactic frontier was one filled with challenges. Political intrigue and constant negotiation between species whose cultures and values often conflicted. Today had been particularly draining. He had spent hours mediating a dispute between two powerful alien factions on the edge of explored space. His mind was weary, longing for rest in the quiet solitude of his private quarters. As he entered his room, a simple but comfortable space filled with mementos from Earth and other worlds, he noticed something unusual immediately. Sitting quietly on the edge of his neatly made bed was a tiny figure, small, fragile, and utterly unexpected. The figure was unlike anything James had encountered before. She was no taller than a human toddler, perhaps 3 or 4 years old in stature, but her appearance was clearly alien. Her skin had a faint, shimmering blue hue, almost translucent in the soft light of the room, with delicate markings along her arms that seemed to glow softly. Her large eyes, far bigger than a human child's, were wide with a mix of curiosity and cautious hope. Her hair floated gently as if weightless, and her small frame was clothed in a simple woven tunic of unknown fabric. James's first instinct was surprise, then concern. How had she gotten aboard? Was she lost or in danger? Before he could speak, the girl slowly raised one slender finger and pointed toward the bed. Then she whispered, so quietly James had to lean in to hear her words. "Is this where marriage happens?" The question was so simple, so innocent, yet charged with deep meaning. James was a man familiar with diplomacy and alien customs, but this was something new, something profoundly personal. His mind raced to make sense of the moment. Marriage, to James, it was a deeply human institution, a promise of commitment and partnership. But across the galaxy, different species had different traditions, some formal, some sacred, some even based on bonds of energy or mental connection. Yet none had ever approached him with such direct vulnerability before. He knelt to meet her gaze at eye level. His voice was gentle and warm as he replied, "Marriage? Here?" The little girl nodded shyly. Her eyes searched his face, filled with unspoken questions and hope. She seemed fragile, yes, but also brave in her quiet way. There was no fear in her, only trust and unspoken plea for understanding. James's mind reeled. Who was she? Why had she come to him specifically? Was she seeking help, a family, a mate? And what customs did her people follow? In the days that followed, James reflected often on that moment. The universe was unimaginably vast, full of strange worlds and cultures. Yet here, in the quiet confines of his quarters, an unexpected bond had already begun. The little alien girl, small and alone, had appeared like a mystery wrapped in hope. Though his duties called, James knew he could not ignore her. She was not a threat or a diplomatic problem. She was something else, something precious. He contacted his personal aide to help care for her, making sure she was safe, fed, and comfortable. He arranged for translators and scholars aboard the ship to help unravel the mystery of her origins. But the girl, for now, spoke little beyond that one haunting question about marriage. That single question carried weight beyond words. It was a window into a culture James barely understood, but instinctively respected. Marriage was not just a ceremony or a contract. It was a sacred beginning, a foundation of trust and partnership that transcended species. In the quiet moments, James often found himself gazing at the bed where she had first sat. It had become a symbol, a place not only for rest but for new beginnings, a place where two beings from completely different worlds might find common ground. The little alien girl's presence aboard the starship Endeavour stirred a mixture of curiosity, compassion, and uncertainty in Captain James Harper. After that initial moment where she pointed at his bed and quietly asked, Is this where marriage happens? James knew that to truly help her, he needed to understand her culture, her world, and the meaning behind her question. The ship's translators and xenocultural specialists worked diligently to identify the girl's species and customs. Their initial scans revealed that she belonged to a little-known species from a remote system, rarely encountered by humans but known among interstellar anthropologists for their complex social rituals surrounding bonds and marriage. This species was small in stature, with bioluminescent skin patterns that reflected emotional states, and their social customs were deeply rooted in trust, shared vulnerability, and lifelong commitment. For this species, marriage was more than a legal or ceremonial act. It was a sacred rite of passage symbolizing the complete union of two beings' lives, emotions, and destinies. What made this particularly unique was the central role of the bed in their tradition. The bed was not just a place to rest, but a sacred space where two souls declared their trust in each other and began a shared existence. It was a symbol of vulnerability, safety, and unity. The ceremony often involved the couple sitting together on this bed in silence or soft conversation, sharing their hopes and fears, and sometimes exchanging personal tokens. Understanding this deep symbolism helped James see the gravity behind the girl's quiet question. She wasn't just lost or confused, she was searching for connection and a bond that her species held sacred. But why had she come all this way, across the vastness of space, to a human captain's quarters? And more importantly, why him? James tried to communicate gently, using the limited language tools and gestures available. The girl responded with quiet nods and soft sounds, slowly warming to his presence. She seemed fragile but also possessed a quiet strength, a determination born from necessity or perhaps hope. Days passed, and the girl remained in his quarters. James had assigned his personal aide, Lieutenant Mara Voss, to care for her when he was busy with official duties. Mara quickly became an invaluable bridge between the cultures, showing patience and kindness that eased the girl's fears. Together, they created a small sanctuary on the ship, a place where the girl could rest, learn, and begin to heal from whatever trauma or loneliness she might have experienced. As James observed the girl's behavior and reactions, he realized how isolated she must have felt. Her species apparently valued connection so deeply that loneliness was almost unbearable. It became clear that she wasn't just seeking shelter. She was seeking a partner, someone to stand beside her through life's challenges. James found himself reflecting on what it meant to be human in a universe so vast and varied. Despite all the differences among species, the core desire for companionship, trust, and love seemed universal. This realization deepened his resolve to help the little alien girl find her place. Through careful communication, James learned that her journey was not accidental. She had left her home world with a purpose to find a mate worthy of the sacred bond her culture revered. The reasons were complex. Perhaps her family's traditions required it, or maybe she was escaping hardship or danger. Whatever the cause, her mission was clear and courageous. Her presence challenged James's assumptions about what family and marriage meant in the galaxy. It was no longer a simple concept limited to human norms, but a profound, shared experience that connected beings across light years and species boundaries. Despite the diplomatic pressures weighing on him, James prioritized the girl's well-being. He arranged for experts aboard the Endeavour to study her culture further, hoping to respect and honor her traditions in any way possible. He even started learning some of her language and customs himself, wanting to bridge the gap fully. The ship's crew, initially wary and curious, began to see the girl as more than just an alien visitor. She became a symbol of hope and unity. Her innocence and trust reminded everyone of the simple truths they sometimes forgot amid politics and war. That connection and understanding could overcome fear and difference. As James grew closer to the girl, he noticed subtle changes. Her eyes, once filled with uncertainty, now reflected cautious hope. She began to imitate human gestures, smiled more often, and even laughed softly when Mara played with her. Yet the question she had asked on that first day, "Is this where marriage happens?" lingered in James's mind. It was a reminder that beyond diplomacy and duty, the universe still held personal stories, fragile hopes, and profound moments of connection. James understood that helping her find her way meant more than just physical safety. It meant embracing the possibility of a new kind of bond, one that crossed species and cultures. As the days turned into weeks aboard the Starship Endeavour, the relationship between Captain James Harper and the tiny alien girl began to evolve in ways neither could have anticipated. What started as a surprising encounter, the girl quietly pointing at his bed and asking if it was where marriage began, grew into a deeper connection, rooted in mutual understanding, trust, and the simple warmth of companionship. Initially, James had approached the situation with a mix of duty and curiosity. He was a man used to managing complex political alliances and navigating interstellar diplomacy. But this personal and intimate interaction was unfamiliar territory. The girl, small and vulnerable, had entrusted him with a question that symbolized profound cultural meaning for her species. That alone sparked something protective and tender within him. During their early days together, communication was limited. The girl spoke little, mostly using soft gestures and a few simple words that James's aides were slowly learning to translate. But communication is never just about words. Through shared moments, the quiet watching of stars outside the ship's windows, the exchange of simple smiles and small acts of kindness, a bond was growing. James found himself fascinated by her curiosity about human customs. She would watch him eat, fascinated by the way he used utensils, and sometimes mimic his movements in an awkward, endearing way. She seemed especially intrigued by human expressions of friendship and trust, handshakes, smiles, and the concept of home. The alien girl's species, as James learned, had a long and rich tradition of connection and trust, symbolized through physical closeness and sharing sacred spaces. The bed was central, not just a place to rest, but a sacred site where deep emotional bonds were formed. When she first asked if his bed was where marriage began, she was seeking more than just an answer. She was seeking trust, a sign that he could be a partner worthy of the lifelong bond her culture revered. James recognized this and responded with patience and openness. He began inviting her to spend time in his quarters, making space for her to feel safe and valued. He allowed her to explore and learn, never forcing or rushing her but letting the connection unfold naturally. Lieutenant Mara Voss, his personal aide, played a crucial role in fostering this bond. Mara's gentle demeanor and empathy helped the Fincy girl feel cared for beyond James's busy schedule. Together, they created an environment where the alien child could grow in confidence. Over time, the girl's demeanor shifted. The cautious uncertainty that once clouded her large eyes gave way to moments of genuine joy. She started to laugh softly, her melodic voice a rare and beautiful sound aboard the starship. She began to show affection in small ways, reaching for James's hand, leaning against his side, and sharing quiet moments of presence. James, too, found himself changed. The burden of leadership and diplomacy, often isolating, was softened by this new, unexpected companionship. The alien girl reminded him that even in the vastness of space, personal connections mattered deeply. They grounded him, gave him hope, and made the challenges of his role more bearable. One evening, as the ship glided silently through a distant star system, the girl once again pointed toward the bed, whispering the question that had brought them together. Is this where marriage begins? But now, The meaning behind her words was clearer to James. Marriage for her people was not just a ritual or tradition. It was an act of trust, vulnerability, and shared destiny. It was about standing together, no matter what the future held. James looked at her and smiled, a warmth spreading through him that transcended words. Marriage, he said softly, is not about where you start, but who you choose to stand beside. The girl's eyes shone brightly, filled with hope and understanding. She reached out her small hand toward James, an unspoken invitation to join her on a journey neither fully understood but both were willing to embark on. Their bond was no longer defined by species, differences, or cultural barriers, but by the shared human and alien experience of seeking trust and belonging. This moment marked a turning point. The tentative connection was becoming a partnership. They were no longer simply a captain and an alien visitor. They were companions, each bringing unique strengths and hopes into their union. The crew aboard the Endeavour began to notice the change as well. Whispers circulated about the tiny alien girl who had arrived lost and silent, now radiating confidence and joy. James, too, seemed more grounded, his leadership tempered by the quiet strength of the bond he had formed. Through this relationship, both James and the girl challenged the boundaries of tradition and expectation. Their growing bond became a symbol, a reminder that across the stars, the universal desire for connection, love, and trust could bridge even the most profound divides. The question that had begun it all, is this where marriage begins, was no longer a simple inquiry but a doorway into something greater, the possibility of a shared future built on respect, understanding, and an unbreakable bond. The growing bond between Captain James Harper and the little alien girl, Lyra, had become a quiet but powerful symbol aboard the starship Endeavour. What had started as a fragile connection blossomed into something profound, a union that transcended species, cultures, and the vast distances between stars. Their relationship challenged old prejudices and sparked curiosity among the ship's crew and visiting diplomats alike. News of their impending marriage ceremony spread quietly but steadily throughout the ship. Though some were skeptical or confused, many were touched by the authenticity of their bond. This wasn't just a diplomatic arrangement or a convenience, it was a genuine partnership built on trust and mutual respect, yet understanding the importance of honoring Lyra's culture and blending it with human traditions. Captain Harper sought to create a ceremony that was meaningful for both of them. The ceremony would not only celebrate their union but also symbolize the unity of two very different worlds coming together in harmony. The ship's cultural officers and translators worked closely with Lyra to design a ceremony that respected the sacred traditions of her people. For her species, marriage was centered around the bed, the sacred space where vulnerability, trust, and lifelong commitment were first openly shared. This concept was both foreign and deeply moving to the human crew. The bed itself was to be placed prominently in the ceremonial hall, adorned with woven fabrics and symbols from Lyra's home world representing the intertwining of their lives. Around the bed, soft lights mimicked the bioluminescence of her skin, creating an ethereal glow that filled the room with warmth and reverence. On the day of the ceremony, the Endeavour's communal hall was transformed into a space of solemn celebration. Aliens from various species mingled with human crew members, each bringing elements of their own cultures. The diverse assembly reflected the complexity and beauty of the galaxy's interconnectedness. Guests arrived wearing traditional garments, some ornate and colorful, others simple and dignified. Interstellar musicians played instruments unfamiliar to human ears, yet the melodies evoked feelings of hope and unity that transcended language. The ceremony began with a moment of silence, honoring the journeys and sacrifices that had brought James and Lyra to this point. Then, with quiet dignity, the couple entered the hall, their presence commanding respect and attention. James wore a simple yet elegant uniform, adorned with subtle symbols representing his Earth heritage and the alliances he had helped forge. Lyra was clad in a delicate tunic woven with threads that shimmered softly, echoing the patterns of her skin, a vivid reminder of her origins. They approached the bed together, moving with calm intention. The act of sitting side by side on the sacred bed was central to the ceremony. It symbolized their willingness to be vulnerable with each other, to share their lives, fears, hopes, and dreams. James reached out to hold Lyra's small hand, feeling the fragile warmth and steady pulse beneath her skin. The room seemed to quiet further as they exchanged personal tokens. James placed a simple silver ring on Lyra's finger, a symbol of his commitment, an echo of human marriage traditions. In return, Lyra offered James a woven band from her homa, loop of interlaced metals that signified unity and strength. The exchange was more than symbolic. It was a binding of cultures, hearts, and futures. Throughout the ceremony, translators conveyed the heartfelt vows in both languages, emphasizing promises to protect, to honor, and to stand together through all trials. The words were simple yet profound, echoing ancient traditions that transcended species and spoke directly to the universal desire for connection. The ceremony concluded with a shared moment of silence as James and Lyra rested side by side on the bed, the sacred space that had first brought them together. It was a quiet but powerful affirmation of their union, witnessed by a diverse assembly who recognized that what they were witnessing was something rare and beautiful. Afterward, celebrations erupted throughout the ship. Food from many worlds was shared, laughter and music filled the halls, and stories of unity and hope spread quickly. The marriage of a human captain and a tiny alien girl became a beacon, a testament to the power of understanding and love. For James and Lyra, the ceremony was more than a ritual. It was a promise made in the presence of friends and allies, a foundation for a future they would build together. It symbolized not just their personal commitment, but the possibility of peace and harmony across the galaxy. In a universe often marked by conflict and mistrust, their marriage stood as a reminder that connection could overcome even the greatest divides. The sacred bed, once just a simple piece of furniture, became a symbol of unity and hope. As the celebrations continued late into the starship's night, James and Lyra shared a quiet moment. Looking into her bright eyes, he saw not only the girl, who had arrived unexpectedly, but the partner who would journey with him through whatever challenges lay ahead. The ceremony marked a new beginning not only for them but for all who witnessed the merging of worlds and hearts. Together they had shown that marriage was not confined to any one culture or species. It was a universal language of trust, love, and commitment, capable of bridging galaxies. After the ceremony, Captain James Harper and the little alien girl, now named Lyra, embarked on a new chapter of their lives, one defined not just by their personal bond, but by the profound example they set for those around them. Their marriage was not merely a private union. It became a symbol of hope, unity, and the power of connection across cultural and species divides in a vast and often hostile galaxy. The Starship Endeavour continued its mission of diplomacy and exploration, but something had shifted within its corridors. James and Lyra's relationship was no longer an odd curiosity but a beacon of possibility. The crew and allied diplomats who witnessed their union began to see that genuine trust and partnership could transcend deeply ingrained prejudices and cultural differences. For James, life transformed in subtle yet significant ways. His role as captain was always demanding, filled with difficult decisions and the heavy weight of responsibility. But having Lyra by his side added a new dimension to his existence, a source of strength, comfort, and unyielding loyalty. Lyra herself grew in confidence and presence. From the small, timid girl who had quietly asked if the bed was where marriage happened, she blossomed into a vibrant, wise, and compassionate partner. Her unique perspective, shaped by her alien heritage and the sacred traditions of her people, brought fresh insights to the ship's diplomatic missions. Together, they became a formidable team. Lyra's intuition and cultural knowledge complemented James's experience and leadership. Their partnership challenged assumptions, opening doors to negotiations and alliances previously thought impossible. Beyond their roles as leaders, their personal bond deepened with each passing day. They shared quiet moments in the glow of distant stars, explored uncharted worlds, and navigated the complexities of blending two very different lives. They learned from each other, celebrated differences, and built a shared future grounded in respect and love. The ship's crew watched this evolution with admiration and hope. Some who had once been skeptical now found inspiration in their story. Their union sparked conversations about what family meant in the galactic context, about acceptance and the courage to embrace the unfamiliar. In many ways, James and Lyra became ambassadors not just of their respective cultures, but of the universal human and alien capacity for connection. Their marriage was a living testament to the idea that even in the farthest reaches of space, bonds of trust and love could flourish. Yet their journey was not without challenges. The galaxy was vast and often unpredictable. Prejudices and fears still lingered in many quarters, and some factions viewed their union with suspicion or disdain. But James and Lyra faced these challenges together, their shared commitment a shield against adversity. Their home aboard the Endeavour became a sanctuary for those seeking understanding, a place where differences were celebrated rather than feared. Through their example, others began to reconsider long-held biases and open their hearts to new possibilities. One evening, as they sat together beside the bed that had first brought them together, Lyra smiled and whispered, "Thank you for saying yes." James took her hand gently, his gaze steady and full of warmth. "The universe brought you to me," he said softly, "and I choose to stand with you always." That simple promise encapsulated everything they had come to mean to each other. Choice made freely, without obligation or expectation, founded on mutual respect and love. Looking ahead, James and Lyra knew their journey was only beginning. They would face new challenges, explore new worlds, and continue to build bridges across cultures. But they did so with confidence, knowing that their bond was strong enough to endure whatever came their way. In a galaxy often marked by conflict, their story was a reminder that peace and unity start with individuals willing to open their hearts and embrace the unknown. Their marriage was not just a personal milestone, but a beacon lighting the way for others. As the Endeavour sailed through the endless night of space, James and Lyra stood together, partners, lovers, and pioneers of a new era. Their story was one of hope, proving that even the smallest beings could spark the greatest change. In the quiet hum of the starship and under the watchful gaze of distant stars, a human and an alien began a journey that would forever change not only their lives, but the very fabric of the galaxy itself.